All right then. Over here, my friends, we have one of the most talented musicians this country has ever produced, from Clonmel originally, now of course with UCC in Cork, and he has this wonderful capacity to mix in traditional Irish stuff with a sprinkling of jazz and a little touch of classicals. He's with the Irish Chamber Orchestra tonight with a track from his latest album, which is called Gaiseadh, which means flowing, and the track's called Crispy. It was written by Bowron player Mel Mercier. Let's have a welcome please for Mícheál Ó Súilleabháin. Lovely. That's lovely. Hello, Jerry. Really lovely. Oh, big round of applause there. Very enthusiastic and well-named piece. Crispy it is.
Well, you know, just when I was practicing that earlier on, at the camera rehearsal, I thought of something a friend of mine said to me once about complex music. Yeah. That somebody come up to a musician and said, that must be a fierce that must be fierce hard to play because it's fierce hard to listen to. There's a strange kind of logic to that now, isn't there? It is a difficult piece to play, you know, but when musicians start enjoying themselves, you know, it's time to go home.
Great.
In a way.
Indeed, when they start relaxing. Yeah. What's your official designation in UCC?
I would be now a statutory lecturer of the National University of Ireland at University College Cork. Senior lecturer, I suppose. Yeah, and I'm very proud of it.
Now, were you responsible, Mícheál, for this change in entrance qualifications, that you're taking in trad musicians as well as classical musicians, and there's no distinction between the two?
Yes, I would have been a part of that, but you know, you can't do something like that without the help of colleagues around you. And strangely enough, in University College Cork Music Department, most of my colleagues, full-time colleagues, are English musicologists. And you would imagine in a situation like that, particularly in Ireland at this time, that you wouldn't get something very Irish done. But in fact, that isn't true. And that's something really that I've learned in terms of that sort of English-Irish, you know, all that problem, that Anglo-Irish problem that goes on all the time.
But even more so classical versus trad.
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, it's not so much the musicians who have the problem. You know, classical performing musicians don't have the problem, but somehow or other it's how the music has become institutionalized. And it's the institutions that have the problem, and it creates its own tradition. And that has to be broken through. And for us in Cork, we were very proud to be the first people to create a system which would allow our traditional musicians to come in and share the same course. There was no question about sort of hiving them off, you know, this ghetto thing. But to actually share the same course, it meant that we had to change the place. But I think schools are there to be changed, not people. I mean, people must change in school, but in order to allow that.
And it's working out, is it?
It's working out very well, actually.
They're learning off each other and they're hiving off.
There's an awful lot that goes on, I suppose, on the classroom floor. I think that the students learn an awful lot more from each other than they do from the lecturers, in a way. I mean, we get through the facts and the figures and we introduce them to various things. But when the lecture is over, and if you're 17 or 18 years of age and you sit down, you have a cup of coffee or a drink or whatever with someone and you share a few tunes and you say, where are you from? Or you're a piper, or you play the French horn. I never met anyone who played the French horn before. And there are a lot of misconceptions and preconceptions, I suppose, broken down as a result of that.
The next thing after that is a session and a gig.
The session and the gig. And then, of course, because the musicians from both streams are actually there, they start forming little groups and experimenting, and, you know, you don't know what's going to come out of it.
Yeah. What do you reckon about that, Jerry?
I have to say, I mean, I haven't heard a piece of music it's superb in a long time, and I was engrossed in it there. I mean, it's new to me. I mean, it's sort of reminiscent of a Rieda, stroke Wagner or whatever. I mean, it's fabulous, really fabulous, I have to say. But it conjures up a movement, like flowing all over the place and images and all that. Would you think of an image or a story first and write the music, or would you write the music and then think, you know, would that inspire?
I would normally write the music first, and then I would notice things, like I might be reading a poem, and I would decide that, oh, the feeling or the emotion in that poem is, I recognise it as the thing that was in the music. And then I like to tie them up, because it obviously helps people, I think, as well, if you tie it in that way. But you see, that piece there, I was thinking when you were talking about the election earlier on of our new Indian TD in Clare, Dr. Banji, because that piece there is actually, you mentioned, Gay, about the mixture of classical trad and whatever. It's Indian, and you mentioned Mel and I composed that together, and it started as a rhythmic composition by him. It's really an Indian rhythmic composition, and it's made up of all kinds of, I was thinking, little syllables. The rhythm of that da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da-dum can actually be spoken as tiri-kita-da, tuka-tiri-kita-da, tuka-tuka-tiri-kita-da, tiri-kita-da, tuka-tiri-kita-da, tuka-tuka-tiri-kita-da, which is actually an Indian way of vocalizing rhythms. It's an Indian piece. We should have dedicated it to Dr. Banji as a welcome to the dawn, shouldn't we?
We should indeed.